And so how did you marry that creative side of yourself into the real estate business? And, I know that you consult with many people across the country. They come to you and they ask you, how do you do this? And how do you make for a good story and create that brand in real estate? Because this is definitely one of your secret superpowers.
I still enjoy it. That's the thing. So I didn't abandon my degree in marketing. I didn't say, okay, I'm going to do a whole, life change. I wanted to incorporate those skills and my passion for art, design, marketing into what I do every day. And bringing that, having fun with creating a flyer, a listing sign, or brainstorming with another agent and going, okay, well, we like this sign, this style, but, let's see how it looks from 2 blocks away. If it's an open house sign, maybe it's not catching the eye. And working on verbiage and spacing out things and layout, I really enjoy it in this industry.
Welcome to the Jeff Sutherlin Show. Let's grow today as we learn from decades of real estate and leadership experience.
We want you to know that when you log into this show, you're going to get authentic conversation. We're going to give it to you straight, and it's going to be real.
Well, hey, everybody, Jeff Sutherlin on the Jeff Sutherlin Show. I'm excited. Today, we have Justin Gonzalez with us, and Justin is a marketing guru. This isn't just for real estate agents today. This is for anybody that really wants to improve their brand and understand how they do it strategically and methodically. He's actually one of the guys I go to for advice when it comes to brand development. And I'm just very thankful he's on here today. He's one of my business partners. Before I start talking to Justin, boy, things are changing in Phoenix by the day. It's like every day is so crazy. You go to some zip codes and it's a flat market, it's balanced. Some zip codes are in a flat out buyer's market. Some are still in a seller's market. I would say by far the market in Phoenix is a buyer's market now at this point, and we're taking on even more supply. And I've been telling everybody, now's the time to buy. And I think it's only going to get better as we get into a softer market through the end of the year. So it's just a wonderful time to buy. So I'm sure Justin will have some thoughts on that as well. And Justin is one of my partners in an organization called the Collaborative Realty Group. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the intro.
Absolutely. Justin, tell us a little bit about, how'd you get into real estate? Tell us about your background, how you injected yourself into this industry.
Sure. Yeah. My background, so I've got a degree in marketing design. And after college, I gave a year of my time back. I just felt like that was the right thing to do to my community. And I was a high school art teacher for a year. Loved it. There are things that I really enjoyed about it. One of them wasn't the paycheck, unfortunately, or that career may have lasted longer. But after that, I did find myself into a wide company that was broadly known back in the day called Landiscore. It was a real estate mapping company. And that was kind of my first taste of being in anything real estate. Shortly after that, I got my license. I went to school for it, passed, and then I just didn't get the warm embrace of, from friends and family, because sometimes, when you disclose you're going to be a real estate agent, there's a stigma there, and people, they don't really know who we are, and they don't know the work that we put into it. And so I put that on pause for several years. I was a co-owner of a financial planning company, and then I went into business coaching. And after that, I had a friend of mine just ask me, hey, do you want to go look for houses one day? And I just thought to myself, yeah, I do. I really do. And I was all over, the generic sites that none of us really recommend to use, but I was having fun doing it. And it was that moment where I'm like, wow, this is great. This is great to have my creative side kind of bridge over with that entrepreneur side and making that connection with my friend. And we went out and she tells me, she's like, do you do this for a living? I'm like, no, but I should. I really should. I really enjoyed it. And so yeah, after years of marketing and branding and business development and helping other franchisees of business coaching build and grow their brand, I thought, why don't I put that effort into me doing the same? And then possibly if I found myself in a lucky enough position to be in a spot where I could also share that with other agents I work with. And here I am.
That's so good. That's a cool story. So you bought your first house at age 24, right?
I did. And the market was slim pickings then.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I think all realtors should buy a house every few years, right? Because we have to experience what our clients are going through. And you're
Absolutely.
a young age at 24. That must have been a little emotional and intimidating, I would think.
It was, I mean, you didn't know what you were doing. And it was, the situation where, at that age, and, I don't even put the age to it. It's, if you're not familiar with the industry, you don't know what you don't know. And you really hope that the agent you're working with is bringing those gaps to really, you know, complete the puzzle for you, because your whole puzzle is your life. And you can't really have a whole picture of what your life's going to be if you're not having all the pieces brought to you. And yeah, I kind of wanted to be that agent that I mean, not to slam my agent, but I wanted to raise the bar on that level of service. And that experience is intimidating, it's transactional, and you don't know what everything means. And having someone put certain things in layman terms where they can understand it, they know where to worry, where not to worry, and really coaching them through the process is it's key. It's key to what I do in my business. And I would really, if I were not in the industry, I'd hope an agent would do that with me.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the superpowers you have is you're very creative in your marketing and your branding. And so how did you marry that creative side of yourself into the real estate business? And, I know that you consult with many people across the country. They come to you and they ask you, how do you do this? And how do you make for a good story and create that brand in real estate? Because this is definitely one of your secret superpowers.
I still enjoy it. That's the thing. So I didn't abandon my degree in marketing. I didn't say, okay, I'm going to do a whole, you know, life change. I wanted to incorporate those skills and my passion for art, design, marketing into what I do every day. And bringing that, having fun with creating a flyer, a listing sign, or brainstorming with another agent and going, okay, well, we like this sign, this style, but, let's see how it looks from 2 blocks away. If it's an open house sign, maybe it's not catching the eye. And working on verbiage and spacing out things and layout, I really enjoy it in this industry. Now, freelance design, that can take a back seat. I'm kind of done with just doing that as the full-time career path, but bringing in those skills and using technology and design in what I do is holding on to a passion I don't think I'll ever lose.
Yeah, in fact, you've made some of my signs. And, I look around at all the different real estate signs across the Phoenix Valley, and quite honestly, some of them are quite boring. And I don't think people realize you also offer that service. Is that correct?
Absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. We are strict with the brokerage of following our guidelines, understanding and being so interwoven with our marketing department and realizing, okay, this flies, this doesn't. I've driven down the road many times and realized, whoop, that's a violation. I'm not going to be that person that pulls over and makes the call and go, okay, Johnny Agent over here is in a sign violation. No, I do fun things at my open houses. I've got my traditional open houses, house signs. And on one of my last ones, I had a nice, where's Waldo? Modified it enough so I didn't do any copyright infringement. And it just, said you found me. It's just, you got to have fun in what you're doing. And if you're not, why wake up each day?
Yeah, I agree. And I think people love agents that are fun. I mean, you can be fun and still be professional, and I just think people want to have high energy, and I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And, it's like, there's a fine line between, bubbly and clueless and fun, energetic, and educated.
Yes.
And the thing there is, you want to make that experience, for me anyway, is real estate it's stressful. Any way you slice it. You've got big emotions with someone, selling, they go, oh, they're letting go those memories and they're saying goodbye to them. And then you've got a buyer who has no emotional tie to the property. They want to build their memories there, but they want that perfect price. And, everyone's playing the game. And so understanding both sides of that transaction, especially putting yourself in your client's shoes and pulling that anxiety level down. We want to go to zero as much as possible, but we can't. Everyone has their own background, and having the ability to make the process a little bit more clear, bring in education to both sides of the transaction, I think is huge.
Yeah, you're an educator in your heart and you understand the contract, you understand the process and how to describe it to people. And that really lowers people's stress. I mean, it's a big deal. As I just had a first-time home buyer last night we did a buyer consultation with, and you could just see like the stress going down as I described all the steps of the process to him. So that's great. That's great. So, Justin, I know you live in Midtown Phoenix, that area. You've been living there for a while, and you know that area. So, how do you marry up your community involvement? You're very involved in the community. How do you use that as a benefit as an agent?
Sure. I mean, one of my favorite things about living in, Central Phoenix from, downtown, through uptown, I'm right on the cusp between Midtown and Uptown. I've lived along Camelback for, well over, gosh, do I age myself, 2.5 decades. the it's hit and miss, just like any neighborhood, but a big metro, you want someone who will help you go, realize, this neighborhood's good. This one's a little less good. And, there's boundary lines, and there's, realizing that you're in an area and you might be concerned about the alleyways being open to pedestrians and, the trash pickup. Well, oh, you might want someone who knows when these alleyways have been blocked off or what new renovations are coming, as well as your lifestyle. I love going to the church up here on Wednesdays and Saturdays when the weather's nice, and it's one of the largest uptown farmers market. And just walking over there and seeing my community there with all their dogs and all the booths, and then you get someone's business card and you go and check out, the latest and greatest spot downtown. And I like the convenience of living a active life down here, taking a quick Uber or exploring and hiking on Piestewa Peak and all that. I like to know the surroundings of where I live. It doesn't say I don't know the whole valley. I grew up in, we have been down here since the early 80s. I grew up in Scottsdale, and I've had family all across the valley. But, home is where the heart is. We're all going to know our neighborhoods the most well, if you will, for what we're representing, but we really want to be versed in the whole valley. I'm also a hospice volunteer. My mom is a hospice coordinator, and just helping out people, it's great. And helping people get into a home and they can have those good memories and have those good arguments that makes us all human. It's just, you got to have a good place to call home, and you want to feel safe there. And I really want to make sure that my clients buying or selling understand how people perceive the neighborhoods.
What a good point. I mean, there's one thing to share market data with people, and we all have tons of that, a lot of statistics we can share. But then there's another thing to know the area, know the amenities. That is it's grassroots knowledge, right? That people, you can't replace that. You can't replace it with AI. You've lived there for a long time, the area.
No, you can't. And having friends and family in different pockets throughout the valley, I always ask, I'm like, oh, I've got this great neighborhood that either I lived in or a friend lives in. And, do you guys do Front Yard Friday? Oh, what's Front Yard Friday? Depending on how close your neighborhood is, when the weather's nice here, because we know how the summers are, you pick a neighbor, and, neighbors bring a bottle of wine and some appetizers, and it's a fun neighborhood to live in. I don't know if they all do that in the suburbs, but, I'm sure they do their own thing there, getting the cookies, knock on the door, trick or treaters and all that stuff. It's fun. It's what, makes living in a great neighborhood nice.
For sure, for sure. Now let's step back to your education background. When you get into a contract, as agents, we're all supposed to help people through the contract. But then there's other agents that go above and beyond. Like, what makes you a little bit different than your average realtor, and the fact that you're helping people through the contract? Are you doing anything to really enhance that experience?
I would say something that I do a lot is I like data. As much as I have an art brain, right brain, I like to marry the left and right a lot. And, we've got some agents who will, we all within the group, we all ask her, how do you do it? You just went to a listing presentation. We could say, okay, how'd you do it? That's excellent. And how'd someone else do it? That's excellent. But you want to go with what works for you. I like averages. So I will run 3 different, reports, whether it's a listing presentation or a buyer presentation for a home that they're looking to purchase. And it might not be as in depth as a listing, but I'll like to present, three comps for it. We average them together, and I'll let my client make a decision. I'm very big on presenting the information, showing the market, showing trends, but ultimately it comes down to the decision isn't mine. I'm just going to educate you, and you will make that decision on your own accord, so we know what's best for you.
Yeah, that's great. Right now, this industry is going through a metamorphosis. Technology is changing at such a rapid pace. I think in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a completely different industry, and people are going to either embrace some of these technology tools or they're going to be left behind. That's my personal opinion. How do you use technology in developing your business, and what are some of your things? What are some of the things that you're embracing to really take your game? Can you hear me now?
I'll wait for that to throw. All right, now I got you.
Okay, let's start that segment over.
Now I can.
So Justin, I think technology is going to take this whole game.
Nevertheless, though,
Have you lost
something
me
else
again?
that I do is I'm not the type of agent who will take a one-step approach or one step. Go ahead.
We are so delayed right now, Justin. Let's take it from the top on that segment, and wait,
Sure.
and we have like a 3 to 4 second delay.
We do.
All right, let's just start from that segment again.
Sure.
So Justin, with the advent of all this technology, AI and all these other things, I think that the agent of 5 years to 10 years from now is going to be completely different. I think that you're going to have to embrace some of these tools or you'll be left behind. That's my personal opinion. How are you taking some technology that's moving forward and enhancing your brand? How are you improving your value proposition by using technology?
Try to, I mean, it's just, I think of my parents, I think of, what's this, this email, why don't you just call them or fax with them? It's like, okay, well, if we didn't know how to send an email, we would be so far behind, I mean, we see some agents and they'll still say, it's rare, thankfully, oh, fax it over. I'm like, where do I find a fax machine for one? So I try to stay ahead of it by going, making sure that I'm understanding how to use tools like AI. I'll use ChatGPT and Gemini and all the ones coming out to not only help me with my comps, do deep dive analysis, deliver data in a clear way. I also do some automation skills, in platforms to have my social media a little bit more self-automated, but you still want to have, the personal touch. We can't be overly robotic because the last thing we want to do as agents is come across like we've all experienced when you call any service line, press 1 to speak to an agent, define what you want, and you speak into a phone. Like, we don't want to be that. We've got to still every day bring the human experience and the human element to the situation. So I use it to collect information and deliver concise answers to my clients.
Yep, absolutely. I see that in your stuff all the time. Let's take that a little bit deeper. Like when you take a listing or when you work with a buyer, probably more on the listing side, how is your marketing different than everyone else? What are some of the things you're doing to really, really enhance that marketability of that seller's home?
Sure. Well, at first, it starts with understanding their needs and seeing if their goals align with the market. Every home seller, they want to sell their house for top dollar plus 20%. We all want it. Everyone wants it. When I sold my house, I'm like, oh no, but you don't understand how much time that wall took me to paint. You're like, sorry, the buyer doesn't care. What does the market say that your house is worth? So I try to bring that information in a way that allows them to understand it. So whether it's running those reports, showing the trends, but I also will run comprehensive campaigns to get their house sold. Worked on, whether it's a $2 million home and I'll admit that there was a spot I didn't like in the backyard once. And I said, it's not going to fix itself. Are you going to fix it? Well, no, we can't. I go, do you mind if I help out? And I put some elbow grease into it. And, I had a client that had some great cleaning crew come through. They did the best job on the cabinets. I'm like, yeah, but, they still don't look as white as the outside. Do you mind if I, take a roller of paint and clean it up and get it looking good? And the fact that you're willing to do that for a client, they don't realize that what we do is not just unlock doors, talk to cross agents, and do some paperwork. There's a lot of elbow grease that goes into what we do. And it's also navigating wholesalers and investors. We get calls every day. Jeff, do you have anything off market that I could take a look at? I've taken that with my business. I have an automated response that says, thank you for your interest. They'll sign up for my mailing list. And if I have a property that it aligns with them, I don't need the one-on-one. I'll let you know in a mass text. Here it is. And happy to say the worst house I've ever stepped into. I mean, we had one bedroom caved in and it was tied with a rope from the outside because apparently there were several rats living in it. The kitchen was infested with mold, literally had mushrooms growing upside down from the ceiling. And I exceeded my seller's goal because they got that as an inheritance property and it needed to be scraped and they didn't know how to get it off market. And reaching out to those investors and working out something for my client, it's just a matter of how quickly do you want to move a property is how realistic you are with your price.
Okay, you got me at the mushrooms growing upside down from the ceiling.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. Going in there, I mean, saying, okay, wear the booties and gloves and here's a face mask. And I'm like, come on, it can't be that bad. It was, but it was.
It was probably much worse than their COVID times where we had to go into homes with like full
PPE. Right. Yeah, no, we don't miss those days. Or the line out the door, we're only one group at a time. And okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, this is good. So we're talking to Justin Gonzalez. He works in the Phoenix area. He is my business partner, an amazing creative person with marketing and branding and just personal relationships. Speaking of personal relationships, how do you make the buying and selling process more personal, Justin?
Getting to know your clients. So they're not just, your clients will become your best friend for 30 days, depending on if you're with that client who's going to buy a house, and you've got to have an alignment in personality on some level. You might have that client, basically comes down to read a room. If you've got someone who uses fun language when they're talking to you, mirror it back, use it with them, make them feel comfortable with you. If you've got someone who, talks certain views on something, sure, match it with where you're comfortable. I'll never forget when I had a listing I closed for, I think it was like $2.5 million. And the agent was there and he looked at me up and down and he goes, "Really? You're wearing shorts at the closing right now?" I said, "Yeah, I am, because probably unlike you, I'm going to meet with my client right now and we're loading a U-Haul. I'm helping out. I'm putting the work in. So don't judge me on how I'm dressed, because it's not how you're dressed to show and close. I'm working with my client on the level they want to be worked with." So that's what I enjoy about it too, because I don't want my clients to feel like a number. I don't want them to feel like they are someone who's going to wherever.com. We can all fill in a blank somewhere there and think like, okay, well, I'll just get the next agent in the queue. I never want to be like that. I never want to be like that.
That is definitely one of your strengths. Is you have tremendous emotional intelligence. You have great EQ. And what you're saying is not one size fits all, right? You're meeting the client where they are. And that's pretty amazing, because there's some people, I think it's difficult to have both of those skill sets. Number one, having a lot of command of the data, having good business knowledge, and also being highly effective with people. If you can have both of those skills like you do, that makes for an amazing leader in the marketplace and people trust you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's and it's what your core values are as a person. You can bring that to anything, whether you're working at Starbucks, you're working as a lawyer. You gotta, people are in the world, and if it's hard for you to relate with them, maybe a people forward career isn't for you. And I think that at the end of the day, while we all love income, I really enjoy making my clients happy and helping them achieve their goals. So we get compensated at the end of it. Great. That means I did my job even better. Seeing someone's face glowing and hugging me at a closing and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is my home now." Here I'm in full embrace with a client that maybe I don't know that well. And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." It makes you feel good at the end of the day. You can put your head on your own pillow and sleep well at night.
Yeah, it's those little things. I talk to title companies quite often, and I ask people, how many times do you see agents actually come to the closing table and help their clients, sign the document? She's like, 9 times out of 10, they're not around. And, personally, I always go, because it seems like if I'm a buyer or a seller and I have a question, the title company does not represent the client. I do. And they're going to be like, "Where's Jeff?" or "Where's Justin?" I think those little things matter, and that's the things that they remember.
They do matter. And I'll be honest, though, I've had clients who said, I'd be more comfortable if you weren't. But at least we have a relationship where they can share with me that they're not comfortable with that. I'd rather that versus me be a no-show and they expected me, or vice versa. And it's all about communication. To me, it is all about communication. And, we know the agent that I'm referencing, but, as personal as I try to be, I still take that strength from the group that we share and all this cross-pollination we do, that at the end of the day, I'm also not for everyone. And that's okay. It's okay if we don't align, because you know what? For the next 30, 40, 60 days, I don't want to work with you either. If we don't get along, why would we force ourselves in a position of distress if we can't, bridge that first gap? And sometimes that's the reality of life.
Well, what a great point. This is a whole separate podcast conversation altogether, right? If you try to be everything to everyone, you're going to fail, right? It's like, you have to know that some people are just not a good fit. Typically, I know within the first 5 to 10 minutes, and I invite people to shop around. And I always tell people there's a few different things that can happen today. First of all, you're going to make a decision on me and I'm going to make a decision on you. Or we may agree just to shake hands, hug it out, and say, I wish you the best of luck. And I'm not attached to the outcome. What I'm attached to is giving you a great experience. And I think people respect that, they
Sure.
really do.
Absolutely. I mean, what is it? If I try to be something to everyone, I'm no one to myself.
Wow.
It's
I
like,
like
where are you coming from? It's like, so you want to know who you're working with. And if we're having fun and, yeah, we don't want to stop. I've had with their family, they come, can we stop and swing through, McDonald's and get the kids a cheeseburger? We got 6 more houses to show. I'm like, well, we're ticking along the clock and we didn't really budget that in with the time for the thing, but you know what? We'll do it. If I got to make a shuffle, then we'll shuffle. But, I'm always trying to make it work with everyone.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's in our final segment, let's talk about this Collaborative Realty Group that we're both a part of. You're a
Yes.
co-founder of this brand, and tell us why this is such a successful brand. Why would somebody want to be a part of what we're doing? Kind of give us the gist of it.
I mean, it ties into what we were just talking about. It's like you can't be everything to everyone. And if you do, who are you to yourself? I mean, that's kind of who we are. We are not a structured team where there are some agents who really want that. We are encouraging of independent agents, but then we've got loneliness there. We got, how do I collaborate? Where do I go to figure out, a great idea for an open house or mailing, letters, doing farming? Who can I talk to? And you feel like the only way I can do that is if I get invited from a title company or my broker sends out a seminar request. And who do I tap into? So I think it really just gives agents the best of both worlds. They really benefit from our mentorship, sharing resources. And what I think is huge, especially in this industry, is the sense of community that we bring to each other.
Definitely. Real estate can be a very lonely business, and you need to be able to mastermind with people and, be able to depend on people and just sometimes get affirmation to know that you're doing the right thing, And so, it's this mastermind concept is so amazing. Napoleon Hill talked about it decades ago.
Absolutely.
It's a collaboration of like-minded people.
Yeah, getting those affirmations are huge, but also realizing that you're not only busy when you're working a transaction. That's one of the hardest things to overcome in real estate, in my opinion, is, I don't have a listing right now, or I don't have a purchasing client. Therefore, I'm not a busy agent. Well, that's not true. We're all sending out thank you cards. We're all working on our CRM, we're working on our sphere, working on data. And if you don't know how to do those things, sure, you do feel like you're not doing anything for your career that day. But having a group that you're sharing and cross-pollinating with, it really allows you to realize, wow, there's a lot more that we do other than unlock a door and sign a document. There's tons of work that we do that the average person doesn't realize.
Yeah. Could you maybe go a little deeper, Justin, on some of the things that we do in CRG? How are we supporting our agents and why is it such a healthy community?
Oh, gosh. I mean, from the brokerage as a whole, it's just a fire hose of information. And just like, it's almost like we're the Chat GPT before Chat GPT came around. We can simplify some things and optimize it for those who are using the tools. So if we get together every Monday and we do a mastermind every Monday, where there's in-person opportunities that you host, that some of our other agents host. You sometimes, you don't know if you can go do an open house in our network. We share an opportunity, go host it. Sure. Unlock the door. The other thing too is, you can take a vacation. You can call another agent and say, hey, I've got a closing this week, or I've got a showing this week. Would you mind, opening the door for my client? I'll treat you to dinner on the way out. We're not having the stuffy, I'll give you 10% of the deal if you just open one door. No, we've got a great sense of community that allows us to rely on each other and make our careers our own, but as well as live our lives outside of the job, because we don't have PTO. We're always on the clock. And if you're on vacation with your family, what do? You got to close shop. No one's closing shop, but we also share ideas and we share our victories, we share our failures. And, even for new agents, sharing those failures, or any agent really, you're learning from each other's mistakes. And then we learn together. And then you hear the success stories. Hey guys, I tried this verbiage in my mailer, or I tried this approach with a marketing campaign and it works. And you go, shoot, how do I get my hands on that? Just ask. Here you go. There's enough business for all of us. Now you don't have to worry about taking anything from anyone. And that's really what I enjoy.
Yeah. And you know what else is also really good is sometimes we learn through other people's mistakes and failures, right? It's like people are very open and share, I tried this, I fell on my face, it didn't work. Thank you. That just saved me a lot of money and a lot of frustration.
Absolutely agree with you. Yep.
Yeah. And the vacation thing, hello, Justin, I've talked to agents over the years and I say, hey, when's the last time you took a vacation? 5 years ago. I'm like, what? How is that sustainable? How is this industry sustainable if you can't take a respite at times? And that's part of what I love about our group. I could call anybody in our network. In fact, it just happened the other day. Dennis Salazar up in Phoenix needed somebody to show a house, and he was out with a town with his family. Somebody ran all the way up there to do it. It's like that's the kind of camaraderie I love, and it's because of the culture you guys have set. Right, it's a safe place. And
For sure.
not every place is like that. Like, in corporate America, it's not always that way. And other companies, it's certainly not that way. I know many companies out there that people are hanging over the copy machine, protecting what they're copying because they're afraid to share it with anybody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Or if we were to go into one of those brokerages that makes you punch a clock and sit on the phone every day, are you going to want your best skills, loud enough in your cubicle so everyone hears your tactics? Well, you might be one of those private agents, but here we're going to share this script worked, this approach worked, this is what worked. You know what? This one failed. Don't do this one. And we all share that as a group. And I think that is huge for what we do and the culture we've created. But we also, just like we all do, I know we've talked about this personally as well as in the group, there's also a human element to it too. We've come together about a family function or someone in need or, someone having a great fundraiser or something they're passionate about or rooting them on doing a triathlon or something like that. And not just being coworkers, but being, friends too, and having that, that happy hour after dinner because we don't have that 9 to 5 job where you're going to the company picnic or you're going to, happy hour at 6 o'clock or you're doing the company, whatever game on Saturday morning. And that's not real estate all the time. And to bring those culture points to our group, I think is huge for just a balanced lifestyle.
Yeah. In fact, I think it actually melds very well with the EXP philosophy. The EXP philosophy is they want to have the agent's brand be the biggest deal. We're the most agent-centric company in the world. And that means that the company firmly believes that the agent brand is what counts. That's what consumers look at, and they try to basically give us a lot of tools to help us build our brand. And we simply run our companies on a platform, right? Well, with CRG, same thing applies. Your brand is different than my brand. Your focus areas may be different from mine, but we all have commonalities where we're trying to help each other with general business principles. But we also want our agents to be completely autonomous and individual and really get the most out of their brand.
Right. And then the same that it is with us working with our clients, we all often have agents who come on board and say, you know what, my style is maybe more suitable for this agent. Or maybe do you know anyone who takes an approach that is more hands-on versus digital? And we've got such a broad network of agents within CRG that there's something for everyone, but we're also not a hive mind where we're all so different that we bring something fresh as a group to the table every time we get together.
Absolutely. Friends, we're talking to Justin Gonzalez. What a great interview this has been. Justin, could you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you? And also anything that you thought I should ask that I didn't ask today?
Let's see, my shoe size, weight. Okay, we don't skip all that. No, everything was great. No, everything, I had no expectations of what you'd ask. And it's just covering the bases. I think it's sharing that we agents, real estate professionals, do a lot more than just what the average Joe thinks. And there's more to us than, what the average consumer thinks I think it's huge. And also realizing that we are connected and we're not just these solo people in a boat rowing along and just trying to make your way, that we do have networks and friends and colleagues that we do this together with strategically, competitively. But I think at the end of the day with our group, it's when agents are supported, our clients win. Our clients win when we get support. And we don't just take that from the top. We do it, lateral one-on-one. And you've been a great support to me over the years, Jeff. And I hope I have been the same to you. I don't see any of it changing anytime soon. It's great to also be in an industry where we can celebrate each other's successes. That's one of my favorite things about the group is, you hear an agent close on a deal and another agent of the same, brokerage might be like, oh, darn, that should have been mine, versus us, we're high-fiving and cheering each other on over, happy hour or lunch someday. It's really a great environment, and I'm glad to be a part of it. You can find me at housesjustin.com, or any of my social media is at housesjustin, houses plural, and play on my name, which everyone goes, houses Justin? I'm like, no, houses just in, like they just arrived, and explaining that to people has been a cycle.
Fantastic. Justin, thank you. You're a blessing. I appreciate your friendship and all the things,
my friend.
all the things you've taught me over the years. I'm very grateful. And I wanted to tell everybody, I'm only 100 people away from 1,000 subscribers. So if anybody can help me, give this to your friends and get me to 1,000. I've been working hard at it.
Wherever this comes out editing, whether it's here, yeah, somewhere, click wherever it is, or what does everyone say? Ring that bell, and do all the things.
Awesome. I hope you get a hold of Justin, get to know him better, and see how he can support you. And we certainly hope you had a great time today. And for Justin and myself, we just want to thank you for watching us today.
Thanks, my friend.
Take care.